My name is Raul Ramos. I am a professor and researcher on AI, machine learning, and deep learning. They are trying to address challenging industry problems. I mean, they want to be pioneers in that. First of all, to get a grasp on what is the actual process by which AI might bring value. AI, ML, whatever you want to call it.
We spoke a little bit about MLOps like super briefly before that. This was a very trendy, very hot conversation subject lately. At the same time, AI is not here, since yesterday or since last 2 years. So the question that you started to elaborate on was, why are we talking about MLOps just now and haven't talked about it before?
I think the fact that we are talking now about MLOps and not before, it's like a reflection on where we are in adopting AI. AI models have been existing for a long time. And what happened 5 years ago that we were not talking about MLOps? Models were not produced, were not put into production, were not actually used by end users. Why now and why not before? Yeah, I think it all comes together of organizations being more aware of what AI is or what ML is, whichever what you want to call it, in the sense this is iterative, this is experimental, and a model, if you understand what's doing, even better. Or even if it is a black box, it's something that is going to be inserted in your organization doing some function. And as such, you have to monitor it, you have to understand what it's spitting out, what are its outcomes being used for. Something that organizations are coming to be aware of, it is that one thing is the machine learning metric that you use, and the other one is the business metric associated with it. Let's say I have a 77% accuracy in predicting whatever product the customer is going to buy, how much income that is going to bring me because I have that 77%. Yeah? And if I augment that to 80%, how much increase in my business income, whatever it is, my business metric, that I have that relation that has to be established. It is not a formula. It depends on the organization. It depends on many things. Companies are becoming aware of that they have to establish that. And maybe the effort to get a 3% increase in accuracy, it may or may not be covered by the increase in sales or whatever you do. Yeah? You have a model and you put it into production and your customers change, your products change. Maybe your accuracy drops because distribution shift, whatever. You have to monitor that. And the organizations, they have to have actions whenever they detect that falls below a threshold into which it is not even beneficial for them to have it. They have to establish that threshold. Yeah? Not so long ago, people were putting the models into production, but I think they were not so much aware of all these dynamics. What happened? You put something into production, and then it starts having the accuracy that you had because customers' data changes and so on, and they don't realize it until a few months later that they have a decrease in sales. And I think this is why MLOps right now, it's like a signal of maturity. Organizations are understanding that this is iterative, this is experimental. Models are not magic boxes, they are engineered boxes, and they might work. And if the conditions under which they were developed stop existing, they might stop working. So this is a little bit my vision. I think there is lots of things to develop still in MLOps, but the fact that the term has been consolidated, I also think that it gives something more concrete for industry to know what they have to adapt to. It will not come as a surprise that your model has lost performance and you have to retrain because it's becoming a standard practice. Yeah? These kinds of standardization of best practices, it also helps to manage expectations of people. And I think this is very healthy. This has many consequences. How are contracts between AI providers and AI consumers or AI clients specified? Yeah? Even when you sit down with the legal team, it's not the same to write a contract for a pilot than to write a contract for a finished product or to write a contract to work together in doing iteration. So I think this is the right direction.
Why is it so that we still have such a few percentage of models being actually put into production? Like, what are the key barriers here at the moment? Is it the lack of infrastructure still, or like what are the reasons behind it?
So I think there are several reasons. On one side, I think there are material reasons. In the sense, to put a model into production, you have to insert it into the infrastructure, software value chain of somebody. If you're going to be providing recommendations for customers, you have to insert it into their web app, into their mobile app. You have to insert it into your web service and so on. Sometimes this is not so trivial, like in a factory, for instance, you want to put some computer vision, visual inspection system, and you have to physically put the camera into the line, into the production line, whenever your pieces or whatever you're doing is coming out. And that might be physically difficult as well. But I think also there is another kind of issues which deal with trust, in the sense, I'm going to be deploying a model that can potentially have a tremendous effect of my business. If the model is not achieving the performance that they are telling me that they would achieve, I would lose money. So I think people are very, very cautious, and this I have lived several times as well. One thing it is, one, as a data scientist, machine learning engineer, can build myself a confidence that with validation, historical data, and so on, that the model will do good. Another thing, it is that the owner of the business process builds that trust. So in order for him to build that trust, him or her to build that trust, needs to understand the process by which you come up with the model. Not the mathematics, but mostly the validation process. So I think this is also one of the major issues. Of course, the potential is very high. You can optimize your process, win a lot of money, I don't know. It can also go the other way. So I think it's a question of trust in that sense. And little by little, this is being fixed somehow. But in order for this to actually happen, it is not only a technical issue, like get the model deployed in a Raspberry Pi and put it into the line, which is part of it, but it's also a cultural and a organizational process issue. The business owner has to have trust into what they are inserting into their value chain will be beneficial for him.
Quite many people looking at the channel are looking at starting a career in AI. You have had fantastic, very diverse career. If there was somebody that was considering becoming an AI professional these days, what would you recommend to start with?
Well, to start with, I'm not very sure, because it probably depends where are you coming from. So if you are coming from, I don't know, more basic science background, learn to program well. If you are coming from a more computer science background, get some mathematical foundations. Right now, I think the profile that is really missing in industry and in academy is the person who has a certain knowledge of the domain and also has a practical knowledge of AI, so that it can design solutions based on AI that are useful. And I think that is what's going to be really needed, because, for instance, in many occasions, I get called to projects, consultancy or academy. It takes me quite a while, because I am not an expert in finance. I am not an expert in, after a couple of years, okay, you know some things, but they are very minimal with respect. I am very, very far away from being an expert, yeah? So it takes us a long time to pinpoint the problem that we want to solve and to understand what are the tools that solve that problem, not over complex or over simple. So that profile that it's able to pinpoint a problem in a specific domain and map what is the AI tools that need to be used to solve that problem, that professional, I think it's key. And I think that is the professional that is going to be required for the following years. If somebody wants to start a career right now into that, I would target to get domain expertise that can be solved with AI. So, for instance, if you are an economist and you like what you do, choose some specialization within your field, trading, demographic economics, I don't know, whatever it is that you like, and get yourself trained in the AI tools to solve that problem. If you are more a generalist, like a computer scientist, electronics, or whatever, you are training the tools, but not into what to apply them to, choose a field that you like and get specialized in that field. Obtain knowledge in that field not so many people know. Go to a finance graduate course, or if that's what you like. And this is what I usually recommend.